Hey, this is the McGuire Review, and today we're going to be taking a look at Raptor from Matagot Games. This is a 10-plus, two-player game at 30 minutes. Now, this is definitely a head-to-head game where one player is going to take on the mighty Velociraptor with its 5 babies here, and the other player is going to take on a team of scientists. And you probably haven't heard anything bad about this game in any reviews so far. It's been out for a little while, and there's a reason for that, because this game is awesome. It's absolutely one of my favorite head-to-head two-player games. The theme is excellent. I love that they went with the dinosaur versus scientist. You've got your basic, obstacles that get put on the board, and all of these are cardboard, pieces that go right together, and you place those on the board everywhere that there is not a defined circle or half circle. But let me go right into the rule book here that I've got in front of me. So you'll notice they did a great job with the rule book. It's a nice color rule book, fairly short. It's only got 6 pages in total, and that it does not count the front and the back, which is going to basically list out your components for you and a few special reminders. And I like that about this game, that it is very straightforward. It's very easy to know what you need to do on your turn, and they've laid that out nicely on these large cards that you'll see here. So you have one for the scientist, one for the raptors. And it's really cool because every one of the action cards that you have available in your deck here lists out all of those cards on this reference card here and tells you exactly what that card does. Now, with these action cards, they do have symbols on them, and I'll show you a couple of them really quick. We'll have pictures here up close at the end, but they do have icons and symbols on them that will reference what these actions will be able to allow you to do as a scientist or a raptor. But again, if you forget, you've got it right here on your card and you can reference it. Another nice thing I thought they did was they actually reference the actions that the other team can take on your card. So as you're looking at what you can do, you can look and see, hey, I know what the other opponent can do as well. And you can kind of track as they take their turns what cards they use, because those stay visible unless an activity causes a reshuffle of the discard pile. But all those cards that are played as you have a game turn are left visible, so it's very clear as the game goes on what your opponent has played and what your opponent can do. So it kind of helps you a little bit in your strategy as you think about what card you want to play on your turn. Now, the scientist is going to have a few extra things than the raptor, and the scientist is going to have these little sleeping gas kind of, I don't want to call them bullets, because that's not really what they are. They're more of these sleeping gas canisters that they can release, and they can fire at the mother raptor, as well as they can use to put baby raptors to sleep. And on one side, they got the image of that sleeping gas canister. On the other side, they have these like Z's, right? And what that basically indicates is as scientists can take shots at the mother raptor, if they successfully hit that mother raptor, they can put that right on the raptor sheet. And if the raptor gets
1, 2, 3, 4, 5
hits, the game immediately ends because the mother raptor would be taken out. So that's one way that the scientists can actually win the game. The other way the scientists can win the game is if they successfully capture 3 of the baby raptors. And to do that, they actually have to knock the raptor out or put it to sleep, and then they have to capture the raptor. So it's, it's family friendly. They aren't killing the baby raptors. They're putting them to sleep and then capturing them, which I thought was another, nice flavor of the game. You'll notice there's also these fire tokens here, and what this actually allows the scientists to do, and there's an action card that allows them to use this, is they can lay down these tokens on the board in various spaces adjacent to themselves or adjacent to other fire tokens that may already be on the board. And all that does is really block the path, because when you're the raptor player really relies on having valid paths to run the babies as well as the mothers through. The raptors actually have a lot more movement on the board than the scientists do, and that's one of the raptor strategies. So one of the ways to kind of balance and combat that are the fire tokens that the scientists get, where they can actually lay those on the board strategically to try to block some of those paths that the raptor mother may try to take. to either wake up her babies when they get knocked out and or take out other scientists on the board. Continuing looking at these scientists here, here's something that I thought Matagot did that was really, really cool. And they didn't need to, and I was actually very impressed that they did this. If you notice, and again, we'll have pictures up close here at the end, if you notice when you look at all these figures here, as well as the 4 that are already on the board, and you will start the game with 4 scientists on the board. There's a scientist that starts on each one of these end pieces. If you look at all these miniatures, every one of them have a very distinct sculpt. And, you know, I thought that was a really nice touch. It's not something that they needed to do, but it's a really, really nice touch that every one of the scientists have a completely different sculpt and look to them. And it just adds a little extra flavor to the game. And I think where it gets important is when you get to spend action points and move your scientists never get to take any more than 1 aggressive action per turn per scientist. Aggressive actions are considered firing at the mother raptor, putting a baby raptor to sleep, or capturing a baby raptor. Let's take a look at how we would set up the game board. So I'm going to go ahead and move these guys right back, and let's get these fire tokens off the game board, and I'm going to actually pull them right off. So what's going to happen at the beginning of the game is the raptor player will always set up their figures first. And how that works is the mother raptor has to go on one of the 2 center tiles, so we'll just go ahead and place her right there. You're going to place your rocks on every spot that doesn't have a circle or a half circle. The only way for the raptor to successfully get their baby raptors off of the board, because for the raptor to win, there's 2 scenarios for that. 1, they have to successfully have 3 of their baby raptors escape, or they have to successfully get all of the scientists that are currently on the board off the board. Now, there can still be scientists in the reserve, but as long as the board has no scientists on it at any point in time, the raptor player can win. Baby raptors can only escape through 4 different exit points, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the ends of these boards, and those are signified by half circles that are here versus your complete full circles that are everywhere else on the board as a valid movement area. And as you build these boards, because they're modular tiles, each one of these is a square modular tile, and as well, they are double-sided. So on this side, you're going to get a nice green, lush kind of, forest type environment. On the other side, you're going to get more of a desert Sahara kind of environment. So it just gives you a little bit of a different feel as you play multiple games, which is cool. And as you set those environments up, obviously those tiles can be put in different orders every single time, giving yourself a different layout of where these actual obstacles and rocks will be located. So that's pretty cool as well. You can also change these around, so you'll see when you go to that other environment, and when these flip around, it gives you actually a little bit of a different layout for the board as well, where your exit points are here versus being on the ends as they were within your jungle environment. So they did a really nice job designing the board to give you quite a bit of a different feel and replayability each time you actually play the game. Now that we got our mother raptor placed in one of our 2 center tiles, then what we're going to do is we're going to place our baby raptors, 1 in each one of the other tiles, and we can put them anywhere we want. They obviously can't be on a rock, but they can be in any other valid location. They cannot be placed on any of the end caps. That's where your scientists are going to start their turn. Now that we got all of our raptors placed, what we're going to do is we're going to start the scientist player with 4 scientists, and you can choose any one of the models that you like. The models do not have any special abilities or powers, or they're not different in any way. They just are nicely sculpted and look different. So you can pick up your 4 favorite ones to start the game, or whatever you'd like to do. And 1 goes on each one of these L brackets. And you can place them on any one of these areas on the L bracket. And you'll see there are 1, 2, 3 valid areas, and there's your little half circle there, which is the exit. Now, you can't start your scientist on that exit point, but you can start your scientist on any one of those other points. So, when it's the scientist's turn to set up, and there's a valid reason for why the scientist sets up after the raptor player, because after the Raptor player puts their models on the board, the Scientist player is then going to try to strategically place their models in places where they might have a valid shot at the mother, and they can take a valid shot at the mother as long as they have line of sight. That's all that you need. So they may want to place, since our mother Raptor is here, we kind of did a strategic placement there with getting some cover from this rock. They may want to place their Scientist, maybe one there. They might want to place a Scientist here because there's two babies here, and maybe then babies are going to try to start making their way towards this way, so maybe a Scientist could cut them off there. We might want to put one Scientist here directly across from this baby Raptor, and let's say we're going to put one, let's start one right here. So this one's going to get kind of maybe close in and be able to be somewhat close to this one. So let's say that's where I would want to start all of my Scientists. So now we're ready to play. The Raptor players got their stuff on the board. The Scientists got their stuff on the board. It's time to go head to head. We're going to go into these action cards. This is where I think the game mechanic comes through really strong. So what's going to happen is you're going to shuffle up your action cards, and you have 9 of those. And they are numbered 1 through 9, and there's a very important reason why. And each one has an actual special action that you can take that are on the cards. So you're going to shuffle, the Scientist is going to shuffle their cards up. The Raptor player is going to shuffle their cards up. And then what's going to happen is you're going to draw 3 cards. So each player is going to draw 3. And each one of those players are going to look at those cards in their hand. I'm not going to show one another, but they're going to look at them secretly. And they're going to choose one of those cards. Now, here's where the strategy comes in. When it's your turn, do you want to try to activate the action on the card, or do you want to try to take actions on the board? And those are 2 distinct, separate types of things. So let's, for example, say, and I'm just going to pull 2 cards. I'm going to say that the Raptor is going to throw down this card. You're going to keep those. And the Scientist is going to take, let's say, this card. Simultaneously, each player is then going to reveal their chosen cards for that round. Now, the lowest number goes first. And not only do you go first, but the lowest number actually activates the action on the card. So if you're looking for that action on the card, you're going to be looking for those lower numbers, because that's probably going to guarantee you being able to take the action on the card and getting to go first for that turn. The downside is if your opponent plays a high number card, how that works is when it's their turn, they take the difference of the 2 numbers, and that's how many actions they get for their turn. So in this case, the Raptor's going to go first, a number of 4. I'm going to get to activate my action, which this card allows the mother Raptor to call 2 baby Raptors to its tile. So I may want to say, all right, I'm going to call this baby right here, and the baby has to have a valid path to the mother Raptor's tile. So I can take this path here, and I'm going to put that baby Raptor right there. And I'm going to call this baby Raptor, and I'm going to take that baby Raptor, and that little baby's going to run around this corner here and onto the tile and stop right there. So now I've called 2 baby Raptors to my tile. And really where that would be strategic to do is when your baby Raptors might be getting into some trouble with your Scientists, and you want to kind of withdraw them and bring them in. So you'd scream out a Raptor call, ah! Right? And you'd bring that baby's back into the Raptor's tile. I don't know, that wasn't a very good Raptor call. Ah! I don't know if that was a very good one either, but we'll just go with that. Now it's the Scientist's turn, and the Scientist played a 6, so we've got the difference of a 4 and a 6, because again, remember, the second player, or the player with the highest number, takes the difference of the 2 numbers, and that's how many actions they get for that turn. This would give me, as a Scientist, 2 actions for my turn. So a Scientist has a few different things they can do with their actions on a turn. So for 1 point or 1 action, a Scientist can move a Scientist to a neighboring space. They can, a frightened scientist can stand back up. So there's an action where the Raptor player can frighten a scientist and kind of knock it down for that turn. You can't stand back up until the next turn, so you can use a point to stand up. You can capture a sleeping baby. You can take a shot at the mother raptor. You can also take a shot at a baby raptor, but it has to be on a neighboring space to be able to put that baby raptor to sleep. So those are all the things that a scientist can do on their turn for one action point, and I have two, remember. So I think what I'm going to do is, for my first action point, I'm going to go ahead and take a shot because I have pure line of sight to this mother raptor. So action point number one is I'm going to use one of my little gas canisters, and I'm going to take a shot, right, hit that mother raptor for one wound, and then what happens is you take that wound, flip it over, and you put it on that card. Now, how that hurts the mother raptor is now, if she gets action points and she's able to move, or she wants to move with those action points, she has to burn action points equal to how many sleeping gases are on her card before she can move. Now, she does have an action card in her deck that will allow her to rest and remove those sleeping, wounds that are on her, but until she does, she has to burn action points before she can move. So that's a really good way for the scientist to keep her locked down and not being able to do a lot of running around, because she can very quickly run around and take those scientists out before you know it and clean the whole board of scientists off. The scientist player would then lose. That was action point number one. And I think for action point number two, I'm going to move this scientist in one space. So I'm getting a little bit closer to these two guys, and maybe I can make it up in there my next turn or two to be able to maybe put some of these guys to sleep. That would be the end of that turn. You would take your card that you used, you'd set it at your discard pile, and again, you always keep those visible so the other player can see, oh, I know the Raptor's already played a 4, I know the Scientist has already played a 6, and after a few turns, you'll be able to kind of think through, okay, I know they've played this many cards, so it means they only have a 1, 2, 8, and 9. So it gets really interesting. You start to think about, well, what do you think the other player is going to play based on what's happening on the board? And you try to counteract that. And that's where the psychology of this game really comes in, is when you start to try to figure out what your opponent is going to play. And the opponent may play something completely different and pull one over on you. So I think that's a really cool mechanic. So now that we start our second turn, we're going to draw one card, bringing ourselves back up to that total of 3. We're going to then look at our cards, and we're going to go through that action again. So we'll play one more turn. So let's say I'm going to play this for the Raptor, and let's say for the Scientists, I'm going to go with this card. All right, so 1, 2, 3, we reveal. Okay. Big difference this time. So the Scientist has the lowest number. Scientist will go first, and the Scientist will take the action that's on the card, which this one allows me to deploy up to 2 Scientists to the board. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to grab this model, and I'm going to grab this running guy. And when you deploy Scientists, you deploy them along the long side of the board. You do not deploy them on the L-shaped. You only deploy them on the squares that are in the center here. So, it's just kind of a way to bring reinforcements in from the side of the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and deploy a Scientist right here, and I'm going to go ahead and deploy a Scientist right here. And the reason why I did that is because now I have a Scientist on either side of these baby Raptors, which gives me the advantage of being able to, on my next turn when I might have some actions, so again, on the next turn I'm going to go for actions, because I'm going to want to try to put these 2 babies asleep. Then I will be able to capture them and bring myself closer to winning the game, because the Scientist's got to get 3 captured Raptors to be able to win the game. So, well, guess what? Raptor player played the big number 9, and the number 9 has no action on the card. It's all about action points. Now, played a low number on the Scientist side. So the difference between 9 and 2 is 7. That's a big total. So the Raptor player on this round is going to get 7 action points, which is huge. So let's see how that would play out. Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Mother Raptor and I'm going to go on a hunt. So I'm going to actually go 1 action to do that movement, 2 to take out that scientist, and the Raptor player can have as many aggressive actions as they want on a turn. Remember, our scientists only get 1 per scientist. So I've only spent 2 of my 7. Now, this will be a little tricky, but I think I'm going to dart over here for 3, 4, take out this scientist. I think I'm going to dart over here for 5, 6, take out this scientist, and then I'm going to take one of my baby raptors and I'm going to jump them over here for 7 to get them out of the range of this scientist. Now, that's only one type of movement that I could have taken with my 7 actions. I chose to try to take more scientists off the board in one shot because, again, if I can get all the scientists that are currently on the board off of the board in a turn, I can immediately win the game. And I just took out 3 of the 6 that were on the board because there's only so many of these cards that the scientist has where they can deploy more troops or more scientists. Another option that I could have done, instead of going and taking out scientists, I could have tried to move baby raptors closer towards the exit, trying to get more baby raptors maybe escaping. That would have been another way to go. But I think for this setup on this example, the best thing for me to do on that turn was to try to take out as many scientists as I possibly could. Last thing we're going to hit here is what all the Raptor can do on its turn for the action points. So you just saw an example of a lot of movement and taking scientists out for action points. But here's some other things that Raptors can do. A baby Raptor can move to a neighboring space, which we did here. The mother Raptor can move in a straight line and by use of right angles as far as you like, but stopping at obstacles. The mother Raptor kills a scientist on a neighboring space. The mother wakes up a sleeping baby Raptor on a neighboring space. The last thing the mother Raptor can do is actually remove a fire token from a space. So this is an interesting mechanic as well. So as the scientists are laying down fire tokens, and the fire tokens have to be laid adjacent to a scientist or adjacent to another token. So let's say that, there's a few fire tokens that ended up being, over here on the board for one reason or the other, and a scientist was really trying to block off maybe one of those exits. A mother Raptor can run to the area of the board that's next to a fire token, and what essentially they do is for an action point, they can whip their tail and put out that fire. So that's a nice mechanic where the Raptor can still interact with those fire tokens and be able to take those out to open those paths up again to allow valid movement on the board. That's Raptor. Matagot did a phenomenal job with this game. I cannot praise you guys more with this 2-player game. It is absolutely awesome. I love this game. I love the theme. My kids love this game. I played this actually just today with my 7-year-old, and she was able to play the game perfectly fine. She had no problem because once she memorized, she can read, so she could read the text on the cards, but once she memorized the actions on the cards, there were no problems. And we actually played 2 games where one time she was the Raptor, I was the scientist, then we switched it, she was the scientist and I was the Raptor. So it was really fun and she was able to play both sides no problem, and we had a great game. So Matagot, 2 thumbs way up. Phenomenal job on this. Guys, if you see this out there, pick it up. It's a great buy. It's at a fairly low price point. I got mine at Gen Con. This goes for around the $30 mark, and it's worth every single penny of it. The production quality here is off the charts for that price point. Well done. So hit that like, click the subscribe to join. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time.